Welcome back to Nerf Diagnostic and Repair. I'm Captain Xavier, and this series is all about repairing blasters that are broken in some manner that were sent to me by you, the viewers, and I attempt to diagnose and repair them and then ship them back out. Our first blaster we're going to be looking at today is an Alpha Trooper CS-18. This was, I believe, given to me at Afterworlds. This was going to be going to another person, but it wasn't working, and so they decided to hand it off to me to repair first, and then it will go to wherever its final destination is. And it is well and thoroughly jammed, which can happen with these. It looks to me, just off the bat, like the whole plunger assembly is misaligned. So it's probably not properly engaging one of the releases or the catches or something. So we're going to pop it open and put it back together. It's also missing the stock cap, which luckily I had one in my bin from when I disassembled all my scrap blasters. And hopefully we'll be able to get this thing back up and running. One thing to be careful about when you have one of these primed blasters and it's not priming, do not try to force it. All you're going to do is make it worse. In the case of the Alpha Trooper, I've seen people actually bend the metal priming bar because they just tried to force it as hard as they could, and that's never going to work. If it's not going smoothly, then something's misaligned, something's caught, something's jammed. It may have gotten a dart stuck up in there. It may have gotten, I've seen wood chips, I've seen Lego bricks, I've seen all sorts of things get stuck up inside. But I'll promise you, just trying to force it is just going to break something. So don't do that. Take it apart, figure out what's wrong, clear the jam, realign the internals, and don't make it worse. Well, that's not good. I'm reasonably certain that's supposed to be attached to something. So it looks like the plunger head is stuck. So this has been modified. Whoever had it before took the AR out, and they tried increasing the seal on the O-ring, and I think they overdid it. And that's what the problem was. The seal on the O-ring was stronger than the seal holding it to the rest of the blaster. In fact, there's nothing holding it there. It's all broken loose. They also did not lubricate it sufficiently. Okay, so we're going to add some glue. So that the plunger head doesn't come off. This is a reverse plunger blaster. So it is different. There is a delicate balance between adding Teflon tape to increase the seal on the O-ring and increasing it too much, and so the seal ends up being negated by the fact that there's too much friction and the plunger can't actually move forward with any speed. So we'll try that. We also need to add a little bit of silicone grease. Or, not silicone grease. Lithium grease. Alright! It lives! So it was a matter of the plunger tube had broken and things had gotten misaligned and weren't properly situated. So I got that all shored up. I also replaced the stock cap because that was missing. Other than that, it should now be working. doesn't have an AR, so it sounds a little mean, but it's a reverse plunger end strike blaster. It doesn't really have enough power to break itself. Anyway, I will hopefully figure out who this came from and get it back to them, because I'm sure they want it back. Up next, we have a clear deploy, which is a fun blaster. This was the first deploy I had was a clear one, and I never found a use for it, so I ended up taking it back to Goodwill. And what we're doing with this one, the issue isn't with any of the functional mechanism, it's with part of the deploying gimmick. And that is with this rotation is not working. There's a little knob that's supposed to engage a spring and cause it to rotate, and it isn't. The knob has broken off, so I'm going to attempt to open it up and replace or find some way to get it so that it swings back down again. Alright, so here is the issue. This torsion spring here in the front, there's supposed to be a little tab right here that it hooks on, and somehow it broke off. So there needs to be a new notch, attachment point, something that hooks on that and causes it to rotate when you release it. And I have an idea. We'll see if there is enough room. Okay, so what I ended up doing was, since the tab had broken off, I carved a notch and rotated the hook so that it would hook in to the notch, and then I had to Dremel out a little bit on the far side so it wouldn't, when it rotated down, it didn't push it back out of the little notch. I'm gonna put it back together and give it a quick test to see if it has any hope of actually holding. It works! Fantastic! Alright! Well, there it is! The clear deploy, now properly deploying again. Oh, and the light even works. Look at that. There you have it. I like it. Simple fix, just needed to have the spring reattached to the magwell so it would actually flip out. A word of warning, any of you make any comments about how the deploy is terrible and they should have just thrown it away instead of fixing it, you will have your privileges revoked. I don't need that kind of negativity on my channel, and neither does whoever sent me this fine blaster. So, there you have it. I will get this sent back. I think I actually have the original box and the information, so that one will be getting shipped out soon. Hopefully the fix will hold. It seems to be holding. Yeah. Alright. On to the next one. Up next we have a Strife. An old blue Strife. It even actually still has the magazine, or the ammo lock in there, which you don't see in the later models, and most people tear those out. Obviously the door here has been replaced, and the sling mounts on the handle is missing, so I'm not the first person to open this Strife. And I don't know what's wrong with it, so we're going to put some batteries in it and put a magazine in it and see what happens. Alright, well, sure enough, we're getting no joy from the flywheels. So let's get it open, see what we can find out. I'm seeing corrosion on the screws, which is not a good sign. But I don't see anything that looks like corrosion on the inside so far. Could be a bad switch. So to test that, we're going to need to get to the motor leads. Wow. Like I said, wood chips. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is test the motors by connecting directly to a battery. And they work. So that's not the problem. So it's got to be a break in a switch somewhere. So we're going to connect to the far side of the jam door switch. And that might actually be it. Let's try bypassing that switch. We're going to put the batteries back in the blaster. If we have negatives connected up to negative, so we're going to connect the positive. We're going to go right over this switch and see. Yep. Okay. So what I did there is I bypassed the switch by going from the side where the battery is connected to the switch. Instead of going through the switch and to the motors, I went directly over to the motors. And since it worked when I did that, that tells us that this switch is bad. The jam door lock switch has gone bad, which, it turns out, isn't necessary. So we're going to fire up my soldering iron, and we're just going to eliminate it. It will get rid of the electric brake that kicks in when you open the jam door, but the blaster will work. So I consider that a reasonable trade-off. But now I have to wait for the soldering iron to heat up. Alright, so I simply cut the switch out and cut out the negative wire that went to it for the motor braking on the thing. And then I just soldered the orange to the red. The orange is coming off of the mag lock switch. And now, when you push both the mag lock switch and the rev trigger, it revs! So, let's put it back together. And I was able to find an old, slightly painted white rather than gray sling mount, so I've gone ahead and tossed that on there. I don't know, maybe he still had his, but shame to send it back incomplete when I have the part. Alright, it lives! The takeaway on this one is, as in previous Strife repairs and a lot of motor kind of repairs, start with the motors and work your way back. If you actually know how to use a voltmeter, you can go the other way and actually test and find out where exactly it doesn't connect. But if you don't have that, you can just use a battery and just connect the wires directly to the motor. And if the motors spin up, then you know the motors are good, which means you almost certainly have a bad switch. And then it's just a matter of figuring out which one by bypassing the switch and seeing, does it work when this switch is bypassed? No? Okay. Then that switch is bad. The jam door lock is a 3-position. So it's connected one way when it's pressed and connected a different way when it's not. The other two, I believe, are just single. They're either connected or they're not connected. And so if your rev trigger is bad, you can replace it with the maglock switch. If your rev switch is bad, you can replace it with the maglock switch. You technically could with these two, you just have to wire it a little differently. And I don't know if they'd fit because they may not be the same size. But either of the lock ones can be bypassed entirely without any actual detriment. It's a flywheel blaster. It's semi-automatic. So the fact that it can rev even when, you know, the jam door is open or you don't have a magazine in isn't going to cause any kind of a jam. Their concern is, of course, you sticking your finger in the flywheels when they're spinning. And so that's why those locks exist, but they're not truly necessary to prevent you from damaging the blaster. So if you end up having to take them out because the switches go bad, no harm done there. So that is the takeaway there. I will get this shit back as soon as possible. If you would like to have one of your blasters featured on this show, this series, email me to my commission email address. It's down in the description. And let me know what the blaster is, what's wrong with it, what you've tried, what you did to it, what was done to it. And if it's something that I think I can fix or that I'm willing to try, then you can mail it to me. You cover the shipping to me, I cover the shipping back, and that's how it works. So feel free to reach out to me. This is not a way for you to sneak in commissions by having me fix your blaster by upgrading it or something like that. It needs to be something where it's broken and you don't know why, and this is me teaching people how to figure out how to diagnose their blasters. That is the goal of this this series. So, if you're interested in having a blaster featured, reach out to me email me, and we can talk about it. I hope this was helpful, and thank you guys for watching.